Okay, so some of you have asked questions about how to take your file once you've recorded it in GarageBand and get it up into iTunes University. And so here's a little screencast to show you how to do that. All right, so here I have a completed audio track called Reading Analysis. So what I need to do is come up here and click on Share. And usually what I would want to do is click on Send Podcast to iTunes. And if I did that, it would immediately start to compress the file. And it takes a while to happen, depending on how much processing speed and memory and so forth that you have and how long the file is, obviously. But eventually it will compress the file, and then you open up iTunes and you would be able to find it in your iTunes library. Now, some of you, however, have noted a problem with doing that. I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. But if you're having a problem, you can click here on Export Podcast to Disk. And so that's your other option. And then what happens if you click on there, then it just asks you where you want to save the file. You can save it on the desktop, for example, or wherever you want to save it. And then it goes through the same process. So either one of those options will work for you. And I'm not going to go through the export process here because it will just take a long time and we'll just be looking at the screen. So I'm just going to go to the next step. Now I'm going to show you what you would have to do if you exported your file to disk, because there's one more step involved. And so otherwise it would end up that you would just have to skip this step if you're exporting it to iTunes. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go into iTunes, assuming that I had exported my file to disk. What I would then need to do is add it to the library. So I click on Add to Library, and then I would need to scroll and find my file. Here it is. And then I would click on Choose, and here it would add it. And so here's my file. It's called on Conducting Analysis. Now, maybe yours won't quite show up the way that you want it to. Maybe it won't show up with your name here. It won't show up with the right title, and so forth. So you can change that information here in iTunes. And now, this may be the case whether you had exported it, shared it straight from GarageBand into iTunes, or you export it to disk and then you share it, add it to the library. Either way, it's going to show up somewhere here in your library, and you may want to change how it appears in terms of name and artist and so forth. So what you need to do is right-click or control-click on your title, and then you can click on Get Info, and that brings up this window. And then you click on Info, and here you can change the name of the file, change the artist name, you can change the album name. So you might put in, podcast number 1, for example, as part of that album. You want to put in your name, you want to put in the name of, if you did it as a group, maybe you put in a number of names. Name that you give your podcast some kind of interesting title. Don't just call it podcast number 1. It'd be nice if you had some sort of substantive title. There's actually a lot of different information you can add in here in terms of comments and so forth. You could actually put in the body of the text if you wanted to, which might be a nice thing if you were thinking about accessibility purposes. I don't know how necessarily useful it is, but you could actually put in all the text of your talk in here, and you can even add in artwork if you wanted to add in artwork. So there are different things that you can do, but really the only thing that you need to focus on here is making sure you have the right title, making sure your name is on it, or the names of your partners, and again, you could think about what you want to put in here for an album name, like podcast number 1, but even that's not necessarily important. It's just the name of the piece and the artist name. Okay, so now you have in iTunes your artist name, your title, and so forth. So what we need to do is then go to the iTunes store, and here you can see I've already logged in to iTunes University. I'm sure you remember how to do that. You go in through Banner, and that brings you to, well, I guess I can go all the way back. Brings you right here to the iTunes U site, and then you would click on SUNY Cortland courses. And again, yours looks a little bit different from mine because you don't have access to all the courses. and then you would click on Writing in Cyberspace. That would bring you back to this page. And you're going to be putting yours here into student podcast number 1, and you can see that Philip and Joseph have already uploaded their podcast, so that one is already available. So once you get to this page, what you're going to want to do is upload your file. So if you come over here on the right-hand side, you can click on Upload Files, and that's going to open up in your web browser this page. Right, you can see this is Writing in Cyberspace, and it says here, click on Add Tracks. So you click on Add Tracks, and that brings up a little bit more information. You can see here that it notes that you have to have audio files that are either AAC or MP3. That means they would either have the .m4a or .mp3 file extensions. Right, so if you have any other kind of file, it's not going to let you upload it. So if you're working in iTunes, you certainly can do that. Let me also just note one other thing while you're at it, because in case, if you're using like Audacity or some other program and you end up with a WAV file or something along those lines, if you're in iTunes, you can, if you go, let's see, over here to Preferences, in the Advanced tab, you can click on Import, and you can import files into AAC or into MP3 or whatever. So, so you can certainly change files from one format to another in using this thing. So here, like, you would just select your file and you click on Advanced and convert your selection to AAC. So if you added a WAV file to directly to iTunes, you can convert it in iTunes. But you certainly need to do that. Okay, you need to have an MP3 or M4A file. Anyway, so coming back here to our web browser, to our upload page, you can now, you just click on Browse, and if you had already added your file to the iTunes library, you find it this way. You click on Music, click on iTunes Music, and here's a list of all the authors, right? So here I am, and here's a list of my albums. Mine is in CPN1 Podcast, and so there I would select that, and I would click on Open. So you're going to find your file based on the information that you add in that info section, right? Your artist name and your album name, and then the name of the title of the file, the title of the podcast. That's how you're going to track it down. Right? You just click on Open here, and then it automatically would upload the file to your website. So I'll just show you how that works here. As it says, it's in queue, and it's 11 megabytes, so here it's going. And again, this is going to depend on your connection speed, how long it's going to take to upload the file. But once it uploads, you're done. You should be able to go back to return to iTunes and see your podcast in the list along with Phillips and Joseph's. So actually, I'm just going to cancel this because I don't really want to upload that. But that's really all there is to the process. So let me know if you have any questions, and hopefully you'll have your podcasts uploaded by tomorrow. Okay.